Hello and welcome. You may have seen press coverage of the launch of Retirement Matters, a new service provided by the PMI, supported by Wealth at Work. Today we have Gareth Tancred, CEO of the PMI, and Jonathan Watsley, Director at Wealth at Work. They're here to tell us a little bit more about what Retirement Matters is and why we've done it and how it can help you. Now, trustees are given quite a bit of consideration to the requirement for financial education, particularly those nearing retirement. They're faced with multiple options and it can be quite a difficult decision to make. And we want to make sure that they have the right information to make the correct decision for them in retirement. So, Gareth, over to you. What is Retirement Matters and why are the PMI doing this?
Well, Retirement Matters is a new service that will provide financial education to scheme members via trustees or via employers. And we've teamed up with a very experienced provider in this area, Wealth at Work, who have a wealth of information to be able to help people in this regard. When we look back at the Freedom of Choice Initiative, there were some feelings at the time that people might take their money and do all sorts of crazy things. And of course, a lot of those fears were unfounded. But still, we recognized at the time that there was a need for good, solid education in this area. There are so many options that people have and so many traps and pitfalls that people might fall into as well. So to have a good all-round education in this area is absolutely critical. And our advisory council, when we were putting our 5-year plan together back in 2016, recognized this. And one of the key things that it wanted to see for the PMI was to have a good financial education service. In fact, it was so keen to see this that we made it one of our 5 core objectives to make a difference to the economy and society, objective number 4. Now, of course, some of our other objectives took precedence, and we recognized we had a lot of work to do in some other areas. So this particular objective was scheduled for year 4, 2020, and here we now are. So we've teamed up with Wealth at Work to be able to deliver this particular service. Well, of course, in getting here and in executing some of our other objectives, we've learned a lot about trustees in general. We've served trustees for a number of years, but in going through some of the things and developing more initiatives for trustees, we've learned just how important this is. Now, we've been very focused on trustees as individuals. So we've looked at ways in which we can help trustees. We've grown the number of trustee members we have. We've grown the number of trustee boards that we assist. We've developed a lot more knowledge, insight. We've developed qualifications for trustees. We've put on an award-winning conference, the Trustee Workbench. And even more recently, we've launched an accreditation service for professional trustees, and there is more to come. But we recognize as well that it's not just about trustees themselves, it's also about the people they serve, the scheme members. So one of the things that we now want to do is focus our attention on how we help scheme members. And a service like this, we feel, will be really, really beneficial to trustees and employers to help their members to be able to come to terms with the kind of education they need around this time in their life.
Thank you, Gareth. Jonathan, COVID-19. Is this really a good time to be launching a service?
Well, people clearly retire all of the time, and I think COVID-19 may influence that to a degree, but it could influence it either way. So I think for some people, they would have planned to retire in 2020, and they still wish to do that. But clearly their pension pots, for example, might be impacted by COVID-19 because of the falls in the market. So that may mean that they need to make different decisions than perhaps otherwise they may have done. For some people, that may mean they will carry on working. Maybe they're not going to generate the income that they'd hoped originally, so perhaps they will need to carry on working for another 2 or 3 years and pay more into the pension. For others, we've heard that because of the unemployment going up, that actually for some people this will now be retirement, even though that perhaps 2020 hadn't been the year that they'd planned to retire. So I think for different people it will mean different things, but the key thing is that they understand how they're going to generate income in retirement and what sources of income they will have. So clearly there's the pensions, and a lot of people will have DB, DC, different pots perhaps. There's the state pension. They need to understand how much they're going to get. Very few people actually go on the government site and look to see what their pension forecast is. And then they need to work through how they're going to generate an income and optimize that income in retirement. A lot of this is around, with the assets you've got, with the money you've got, how do you ensure you optimize that income month in, month out? And we know that that is where a lot of people go badly wrong.
Jonathan, you set out quite a series of challenges there that people are facing. So how does Retirement Matters help them tackle those challenges?
So Retirement Matters is really going to set out some of the key variables that they need to think about. So if we think about it as a process, the first part of the process is understanding actually what may be your costs in retirement. I guess the good news is that costs often go down compared to when you're in work, because most people probably would have paid off the mortgage. They won't have travel expenses. They won't be making pension contributions. They won't be paying NI anymore. So that's the good news, if you like, from a cost perspective. But then they need to match that with income. So where is the income coming from? So the first part of it is really getting people to think about both sides of that, really, the cost side, but also the income that they're likely to be able to generate. And then the key thing is well, what are their options, particularly with the pensions? They may have other assets they want to use, but with the pensions, of course, people may be aware that they can get tax-free cash. They may be aware that there's something called drawdown, there's something called annuity, but do they really understand generically what are the upsides and the downsides of each of those options, and how do they work out what is right for them? And I think one of the key things that we come across so often is that people think there's a slam dunk answer to this, and actually it's normally far more nuanced than that, and it does really depend on individual circumstance, even down to what their partner's doing as well. We see a lot of examples of where partners want to retire at the same time. Clearly the partners may have different assets, different pensions, so even coordinating that in an efficient way to optimize income is important.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just wondering whether you had any additional thoughts on that too, from your perspective.
Yes, well, there have long been discussions as what constitutes advice and what constitutes guidance, and I know many organisations are quite concerned about that, and also where that line might be drawn. And of course, regulators never disappears far off the regulators' radar, and in this case, the FCA are taking another look at that, and even asking the question, would maybe a transfer value on a benefit statement constitute advice? So again, it's one of the reasons why we've chosen Wealth at Work. Wealth at Work, are a trusted partner. We've worked with them for many, many years. We've both supported each other's ventures, and they work on both sides of this divide. So whether it's giving general education and information, or whether it's getting into the realms of regulated advice. So again, depending on what individuals need and where that barometer finally ends up, we know that Wealth at Work is the ideal partner to help with this particular program.
So, Gareth, I understand that it's going to be a subscription service, is that right? Could you explain a little bit more about that?
Yes, that's right. We thought that launching it as a subscription service would be best, and it would give trustees and employers the opportunity to send people on these seminars over a period of time. So it's an annual subscription service. The cost is £2,500 per year, and that then entitles the trustees or the employer to send 25 delegates to a seminar. Of course, outside of COVID, that would be a face-to-face seminar, but with COVID, it will be online. And then, of course, if schemes are larger than that and they have a lot more than 25 they want to send, that's absolutely fine. We can upscale that. We can bespoke it to specific needs. And also, if schemes are much smaller and they only have 2, 5, 10, 15 members that they want to send, again, we can come up with something for that. We'll be running what we're calling some public courses, where we can take 2 from here, 5 from there, 7 from somewhere else, and put them all together. doesn't matter on whatever the scheme size is, we can accommodate people.
Thank you. That sounds very flexible. I understand that on the 13th of August we are running a taster session, Try Before You Buy. Jonathan, what could we expect from this taster session?
So this session is really designed for trustees to just get a feel for what members will experience should they decide to sign up to Retirement Matters. So really what we're going to go through is some of the key variables that ultimately members will need to consider. So that will go through, as I mentioned earlier, looking at costs that they may have in retirement, looking at sources of income, whether that be pension or non-pension, looking at what options are available in terms of for pension, how can you generate an income, looking at what you can do with tax-free cash and different ways of taking it. It will also look at risks that the individuals will face. So obvious risks like scams, which we know have been going through the roof over recent times, certainly since COVID's come into place. But also other risks. So, for example, people paying more tax than they need to. It's quite common to see people that have been basic rate taxpayers their whole working life, and then as soon as it comes to the year that they retire, they become a higher rate taxpayer because they just pull money out of their pension that in reality they don't need to pull out. So again, that just results in them having less income in retirement than may otherwise been the case. And other things as well that they need to consider. So getting people to understand longevity, how long on average are they likely to live? And again, research shows that most people underestimate that. So it's taking account of all those sorts of variables and then going through where people can go to get more help. So in terms of Retirement Matters, the process is education, which is what the taster session it really is a summary of. And for some people, once they've been through that as a member, they may say, well, that's given me all the information I need. I'm now happy to go off and make a decision. Others may say, you know what, it's raised quite a lot of questions in my mind. I'd really like to talk to somebody. So therefore, they could go to what we're calling one-to-one guidance. So this isn't regulated advice, but it does allow you to have a conversation with someone over the telephone or virtually around questions and issues that they may have. And again, at the end of that, certain members may say, great, that's answered my questions. I feel confident to go off and make a decision. But then there may be some that say, you know what, I actually now want to go on to regulated advice because I want someone to do a thorough analysis of all of my assets, what I'm trying to achieve in retirement, and make a very clear recommendation as to what I should be doing. So those are all the core areas that we will run through very quickly on the taster session, just to give the trustees a flavour of what their members might receive.
Sounds very comprehensive. Thank you, Jonathan. Gareth, exciting times. So where will RM take us going forward?
Well, we're very excited at the PMI about Retirement Matters and, of course, the partnership with Wealth at Work. It's, as I was saying earlier, it's an adjunct to many of the things we do already. And to be able to launch Retirement Matters is very exciting for us. We've got plans for it to expand it further. So watch this space later on this year and into 2021, and particularly as COVID disappears as well. Also at the PMI, we've been really excited to launch a new initiative every month this year. It's been a really busy time for us. And that will continue. We're going to take a short break maybe through the autumn, but we've got plans to look at some other areas as well. And one of the things that COVID has maybe taught us is that there is a need for some deep dive education in other areas as well. So we'll be looking at issues around financial well-being and also about mental health too. So still plenty on the agenda for the PMI.
Thank you, gentlemen. That was really quite comprehensive. Hopefully our audience will be ready to take advantage of that taster session on the 13th of August. We will be putting up a slide which gives you the links to the PMI website where you can find out more, either about joining us for the taster session or more about running a session for your members/employees. So gentlemen, thank you very much for today.
Thank you.
Thank you.